Hello everyone, this is part 35 of What If Naruto Passed the Genin test, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Doctor, I think he's waking up. Where the hell am I? Naruto asked groggily, trying with little effort to sit up. Some hand held him to the bed. You're in the hospital's recovery wing, said a familiar voice, Sakura's. She was sitting on a chair beside Naruto's bed with her hand on his bare chest. You gave us a real scare. Don't try to sit up yet. Naruto opened his eyes, saw her sitting there, and smiled. I'm fine, he said, his voice a little stronger. How long have I been asleep? Nearly 7 hours, said a tall man, walking into the larger than usual hospital room. He wore a white coat over khaki slacks, a stethoscope around his neck, with his red hair slicked back. Naruto couldn't help but think that this man looked very unlike a doctor. You couldn't have picked a more convenient time to disrupt my dinner break. The doctor chuckled and grinned. Naruto didn't look away from Sakura. That would mean it's well after midnight, said the blonde. Have you been here the whole time? Sakura blushed. I wanted to make sure, personally, that you were all right. She's been ordering around my entire staff all night, said the doctor. You'd think she was delivering a baby. Sakura's blush deepened. I wasn't that bad, she defended. Yes you were, the doctor interrupted quickly, but not unkindly. Naruto gently moved Sakura's hand from his chest and sat up against the headboard, letting the sheets fall to his waist. Thanks, he said quietly. That means a lot to me, Sakura. But I'm fine, really. We know that, said the doctor. Your unique healing abilities have us all amazed. You've been fine and napping peacefully for hours. But you took a pretty hard hit earlier, so as a formality I'm going to have to ask you a few questions just to make sure your story lines up with your friends. The man nodded his head off towards the door, where Naruto saw Jiraiya leaning against a wall in the hall. Okay, Naruto said calmly, what do you need to know? All right, said the doctor, taking a pad and pen from one of the deep pockets in his coat. First of all, I need you to recount, as clearly as you can, the incidents leading up to the time at which you were injured, starting sometime during the invasion earlier. Naruto stammered for a moment, looking away like he was thinking very hard. It's kind of a blur. I remember finding Kakashi-sensei's on the roof. His voice dropped off in feigned sorrow for a moment. Sakura looked at him out of the corner of her eye. Then I chased the sound general into an underground base. We fought for a while, then something happened and I had to swim out of some kind of cavern. Then I got to the surface and blacked out. I don't remember anything after that. Nothing. The doctor probed, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Absolutely nothing at all after you broke to the surface. Again Naruto went silent for a minute, glancing between Jiraiya and the doctor. He could feel Sakura's eyes boring holes into the side of his head. Jiraiya used his underworld swamp. Naruto burst out. That was it, he used the underworld swamp which dissolved the roof of the base and I had to fight my way to the top where I found him fighting someone. Jiraiya peered through the door at Naruto. Worry streaked across his face at the same time that Sakura clenched her hands in her lap. Do you remember who Jiraiya was fighting with? Asked the doctor. Sakura had to fight to keep her breathing even and unsuspicious. Naruto didn't let any emotion show on his face. He had everyone exactly where they needed to be. No, he shrugged. I don't remember a face at least, but I do recall getting slammed by some kind of sharp chakra-based attack. Their reaction should tell me everything I need to know, thought the blonde. A near-tangible feeling of relief flooded the room as Sakura relaxed and Jiraiya's stiffened posture gave way. Perfect, Naruto mused happily. The doctor mumbled, scribbling on his pad. Some minor short-term memory loss. Can you remember any of the techniques the assailant used on either you or Jiraiya? Saying I was oxygen-starved and so I wouldn't know wouldn't work, thought Naruto. Jiraiya would immediately know I was lying. I'll just play dumb and let them come to the conclusion that my mind is blocking out the trauma. Not really, said Naruto. There was a lot of fire. All right, said the doctor. I think that's about all I need. Oh, are you feeling any sharp or stabbing pains? No. How about numbness or tingling? No. Aching? No. Dizziness? No. Nausea? No. Cranial discomfort? No. Discomfort in the bowels? No. Unexplainable urges to K. Doctor, said Naruto, forcing a smile. I feel fine. The medical staff, he threw a quick glance at Sakura, did a great job. Sakura grinned as the doctor cleared his tea. In that case, he said, I guess we're pretty much done here. I'm sorry if this seems rushed, but I have a lot of patients to see, and some of them are in bad condition. We did after all just repel an invasion. Oh, said Naruto. By all means, go. We'll be fine here. Right, said the doctor. Feel free to sign yourself out. He got up and walked out of the room, nodding respectfully to Jiraiya as he disappeared down the hall. Jiraiya uncrossed his arms and pushed himself away from the wall. Examining Naruto as he slowly walked in, the Sannin pulled a small scroll out of his robes and stood next to the blonde on the bed. How are you feeling, Naruto? He asked. Were you not listening to the doctor and me? Naruto joked. I'd really prefer you to be a bit more serious right now, said the Sannin, handing the scroll off to Naruto, who took it hesitantly. For once. What's this? He asked, breaking the wax seal on the scroll and beginning to unroll it. It's from Tsunade, said Jiraiya emotionlessly. She's called a special meeting of the highest Genin, the heads of Anbu, and myself to discuss the recent invasion and where we take the war from here. Tsunade's back? Asked Naruto, unrolling the scroll completely and scanning through it. I thought she would be in sooner for a while longer. Jiraiya shook his head. She's on her way back as we speak and should be here in just a few hours. These scrolls came ahead of her with a courier Nin dispatched before she actually left sooner. The meeting is set for 6 tomorrow morning, said Sakura. Wow, said Naruto, short notice. Everything is accelerating. Not really, said the Sannin. So I'd suggest you sign yourself out and get ready for the meeting. Odds are that Tsunade is going to hand out assignments. And Naruto, if I were you I'd anticipate getting something big. Why's that? Asked the blonde, resisting the urge to glance at the pink-haired kunoichi next to him. Jiraiya recrossed his arms and looked out a window. Because of what you did here, said the Sannin. Sakura told me how you lead the counterattack against the Oto and the Kumo armies and drove them both out of Konoha. That's not something the Hokage is going to overlook when she's deciding who has the skill to handle the bigger jobs. Really it was Chuji that drove out the sound and I just lead the initial defense, thought Naruto, but since Sakura already told him it was me, he grinned. Well, said Naruto, it wasn't that spectacular. Indeed, said the Sannin, sounding tired and annoyed. I'm proud of you for that, Naruto, just make sure you're at the meeting. Tsunade will K us both if you're late. Now please excuse me. Jiraiya turned and left the hospital room quietly, following the same course the doctor had taken and dropping out of sight down the hall. Who shoved a stick up his ass? Asked Sakura caustically. He's been a total jerk ever since he got back. Really? Asked Naruto. He didn't seem that bad to me. I think he's trying to act nice in front of you, said the kunoichi. Whenever I or anyone else tries to talk to him he just acts like he wants to be left alone. I don't know what the old man's problem is. Naruto thought for a second until an idea occurred to him. Did Jiraiya mention how the battle at Suna went? He said it wasn't a total victory, said Sakura, but then again no one expected it to be. Did he say if the fourth was there? Asked Naruto. No, the kunoichi muttered, yawning and stretching a bit. He didn't mention anything about that. Why? Just a theory, said the blonde, sitting up more, causing the sheets to fall a little lower. Sakura, he muttered, looking down and only then fully realizing that he was not only shirtless, but completely in the nude. Have you seen my clothes? Maybe, said the kunoichi, grinning widely. Why do you want to know? Naruto sighed and shot her a semi-annoyed look without saying a word. I'll get them, said Sakura disappointedly, standing up and walking to a small dresser on the other side of the room. SC. So what exactly did you tell Jiraiya about my escapades today? Naruto asked as he and Sakura walked down the dark side street. It was exactly 1 in the morning according to the tolling bell in the distance, and a cool breeze was sweeping through the city, carrying with it the sound of construction all around. Naruto seemed to have chosen the only silent street in the village to lead Sakura down. Just what I saw, said the kunoichi, a wry smile on her lips. You courageously and heroically mustered the village's defense in a hopeless situation and drove the enemies off almost single-handedly. Naruto grinned and walked a little closer to her. You know it wasn't as grand as all that. Yes it was, said Sakura. I said it was, and I'm the steward. And if you ask any of the town guard, even Chuji for that matter, who fought with us on that line yesterday, they'll say exactly the same thing, that you fought fearlessly and held the enemy off. Making me into a hero, are you? Asked Naruto, taking her gently by the hand. Sakura smiled and stepped closer to him so her bare shoulder would brush his arm as they walked. You already are, she said, reaching up and holding onto his arm with her free hand. And everyone in this village should know it. Would you rather I didn't say things like that? Her voice was hesitant. No, no, said Naruto, sensing the uncertainty in her voice and immediately assuming a comforting tone. I'm honestly glad you are and I don't want you to stop. I appreciate it and, I'm glad you are. Then I'll keep it up for you, said Sakura happily, giving his arm a little squeeze. I'll make sure everyone in Konoha knows just how much of a hero you are. They walked on in silence for a minute, until Naruto slowed down just a bit and turned to her. No matter what I do? He asked quietly. Sakura looked up at him and clutched at his arm, holding his hand tightly. I don't care if you wind up burning a whole village to the ground. I'll make you look all the better for it. A few minutes passed quietly as they walked on. They were passing fewer and fewer commercial buildings now and more residential homes and apartments with dark windows. The distance between street lights was growing and the road was getting darker. Naruto squeezed Sakura's hand, feeling her fingers with his and inwardly grinning when she responded in like manner. He could tell she was getting a little worked up over their proximity and solitude. He knew she couldn't have missed the fact that they were moving towards his house. Sakura slowed just a bit until they were barely walking at all and more just meandering down the road. She held onto him and rubbed his arm. Why would you ask me something like that? We've talked about this, she said. Do you trust me, Sakura? Naruto asked, not looking at her. Absolutely, said Sakura without a second's hesitation, no matter what. Naruto smiled and closed his eyes in forced relief. Sakura, I haven't told this to anyone at all yet, but I know I can trust you with it. He stopped talking and quickened their pace just a little. What? Sakura asked cautiously, an edge of worry in her voice when he didn't continue after a moment. What is it, Naruto? You know you can tell me anything and I'll do anything for you. I'm here for you and always will be. Thank you, Sakura, Naruto said quietly. You have no idea how much that means to me, but you may not think so after this. Just tell me, Naruto, she whispered, her voice unsettled. I'm going to do things that a lot of people are going to think are entirely horrible, said Naruto. This war will become unprecedentedly bloody and brutal. This initial invasion is nothing. The war with Iwa is going to look like a civil debate by compare. You see, Orochimaru will break all the rules of war and I plan to fight him on his own terms. Sakura, we're going to win this at all costs and nothing is going to stand in our way, but a lot of people aren't going to like it. They'll think it's bad that I'm fighting like one of the enemy but it's the way it has to be, Sakura interrupted. You don't need to say another word. We already covered this, and since then I've done a lot of thinking. Why are you bringing this up again? Naruto stammered, when we first spoke of this neither of us were all together. Kakashi had just SD and it was in the heat of the invasion and other things. I just needed to know, for my sake and yours, that we both know exactly what we're getting into. I know the risks, Naruto, said Sakura. I love you and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make you love me. To that end, I went over everything we talked about to myself, and I realized that this is the right thing to do all the way around. I see clearly that you're right. Sometimes evil has to be done to get rid of evil. She's practically thinking my thoughts after me, Naruto thought to himself. And furthermore, said Sakura, to make sure that you win, I'm going to give you personal and total command of a 70-man strike force. What? Naruto wondered, nearly caught off guard. You heard me, said Sakura. I've made arrangements for you to have authority over a unit of 70 elite ninja. They'll be under your direct command and all of you will be able to operate autonomously. You won't need orders to take any action you see fit, but I couldn't arrange for you to be free of authority entirely. You'll still have to take orders from either Tsunade or myself, but I won't be making demands and I can convince Tsunade to do the same. Taking credit for Kakashi's work, Naruto nearly laughed. She doesn't know that he told me about that before he SD, and here she is trying to play it off as her idea. How clever of her. Sakura, he whispered, that's wonderful. I'd hoped you'd like it, she said, nestling into him a little more as they stopped in front of the stairs to his porch. It gives you a lot more freedom to do what's necessary. Where would I be without you? He asked quietly, standing in front of her and putting his hands on her shoulders. Sakura began to blush furiously and reached out to wrap her arms around his locking her fingers behind him. He didn't resist. I don't know, she said smiling, probably better off. Naruto chuckled a bit and moved in closer. I don't think so. After just a moment of quiet, Sakura looked away for a second, her cheeks still a vibrant pink even in the dark, and then glanced almost timidly back up into Naruto's eyes. You know we still have 5 whole hours until we're supposed to be at your future, I mean Tsunade's office, she said quietly, not letting any particular tone color her voice. I know, Naruto said, smiling. And we're conveniently right here at your house, she added. I know that too, said the blonde, his voice a little lower as he stepped in close to her and slid his hands down into the small of her back. What are you implying? He asked as he began running his fingers in small circles, pulling her against him. I don't know really, she whispered into his resting against him. What do you think I mean? She stood up on the tips of her toes and leaned into him, hovering her lips a paper's width above his as she rubbed his shoulders through his black anbu suit. All the blood rushed to her cheeks as she closed her eyes and dropped just enough to trace a kiss across his She could feel her core beginning to warm. Naruto smiled, he'd already won. I suppose I couldn't convince you to stay for a while. He whispered in her ear. Slowly, Naruto's hands wandered down the sides of Sakura's legs, sending a tingling all throughout her, then around to the backs of her thighs where he ran his fingertips over her subtle curves. He felt her breath burst against his as he did, and he slowed his efforts. He took nearly 2 whole minutes to run his hands up over her hips to her ribcage when he slowly wrapped her in his arms and pulled her fully against him. All the while she'd been gently kissing his and holding his shoulders. I don't know, she responded in a trembling voice. You'd have to ask nicely. As Naruto moved her close, Sakura slid her hands around his back and leaned her head back instinctively, a motion Naruto did not miss. He leaned in and stopped, just as she had, holding a kiss just beyond her skin. His hands wound up her back to the zipper that ran down her dress along the spine, and played with the tiny metal tag, not pulling it down far at all before he'd playfully pull it back up. It sent a message though, and Sakura slid her hands under his shirt in the back. Don't make me beg, he said in a measured tone. As she began rubbing his back, Naruto whispered against her his words warm and sweet, how she made him happy and complete. The kunoiki's breath jerked as his lips found the nape of her and gingerly worked up to just beneath her ear where he whispered again. She couldn't make out the words this time, they were too low and quiet, but she did however feel the little shiver that Naruto sent shooting down her spine. Naruto ran his hands up and down her back once, twice, gently pressing his fingers against the dress. Sakura groaned very quietly and moved up against him even more, pressing her chest to his. You don't have to be so careful, she whispered. But what else would I be for you? Asked Naruto, his voice even and slow but warm. Whatever you wanted to be, said Sakura, moving her hands up to hold him to her. She was staring into his eyes, her expression starstruck. The dim light from the far-off lamp was barely enough for them to see by, which only made it all the more intense for Sakura. Isn't it a bit chilly out here? Asked the kunoiki, whispering in Naruto's ear. Are you cold? Naruto asked quietly. Just a little, she responded, shaking as his hands slid down her back from her shoulders to her thighs. He pulled her legs a little so she had no option other than to let her pelvis fall against him a bit as he caught her. She immediately felt a surge run through her. Pulling her off her feet, Naruto held Sakura up against him, her face level with his. She didn't protest as he kissed her, but rather wrapped her legs around his waist and pressed herself up to him. Still cold? He asked, almost playfully as he felt her moving against him. No, she whispered, dropping her forehead down on his shoulder and wrapping her arms around his neck. Her breathing was coming in hot draws, and would jerk with delight whenever Naruto's hands found her legs or sides. "We can fix that," Naruto said, reaching up with one hand and pulling her dress's zipper halfway down her back, sliding his fingers ever so slightly over her bare skin. "Naruto," Sakura whispered, looking up, her eyes nearly glazed over. Naruto mumbled, a grin crossing his face as they pretended to maintain innocence. He noticed she still hadn't stopped moving her hips against him, only slowed. Sakura's thoughts were racing, but one phrase kept recurring in her mind. "Please don't wake up." Naruto's hand slid farther down, carrying the zipper with it as his fingers began working along her skin, making her groan. Soon the little metal tag was as far down as it could go and Naruto clearly saw Sakura's alabaster skin. The dress had folded forward, hiding only Sakura's more private details. "What are all these?" he asked, tracing his fingers over the 3 or 4 long dark lines that wound across Sakura's back. "Just nothing really," Sakura stammered, leaning up as her eyes locked on his. She was suddenly self-conscious and moved one hand around her back like she was going to zip her dress up. "Old wounds, that wouldn't heal all the way," she muttered, looking down and praying he hadn't been revolted by the scars. "What's the matter?" Naruto asked, catching her hand in his before she could close up the back of the dress. His free hand slid along the inner length of her thigh, making her tremor as his fingers grazed a little circle on her bare skin. "Why so jumpy?" "I thought you might be, I don't know," she mumbled, wrapped up in his touch. "That I might be," he probed, tracing his fingers up higher on her leg till they vanished under the folds of her dress. "Nothing," Sakura nearly gasped, closing her eyes and letting her head fall forward a bit. "Forget I said anything." In the bedroom, where there were no windows, the darkness was total and all-encompassing. Even if he had been looking for any of the signs, Naruto wouldn't have been able to see the bed's comforter tossed wildly to one side of the mattress, or the random articles of clothing strewn chaotically about the floor. The only thing he could see was the blackness. The only sound was Sakura, her breathing deep and constant from her place beside him. Naruto lay on his back, his head resting on an ample supply of pillows, with one arm underneath those pillows. His other arm was wrapped around the deeply sleeping form next to him. Really, Sakura was closer to being on top of him than simply next to him, curled up against him. The sheets were loosely tossed over them both. 2 more hours, thought the ninja. 2 more hours until we need to get ready to go see Tsunade. That's enough time for her to get a nap, I suppose. Plenty of time indeed, I'd guess. Have fun, Kit. Kyuubi's voice echoed in the back of Naruto's mind. "I'm not going to say it was unenjoyable," responded Naruto, annoyed. "I'd rather that than talk to you at least." "What do you want?" "Nothing world-shaking," rumbled the fox. "Mostly I wanted to ask what you think is going to happen at this meeting in a few hours. Suddenly you're so talkative. I thought demons were supposed to be solitary and a quiet bunch. I'm not entirely sure, but it will be interesting if nothing else." Sakura shifted in her sleep and mumbled Naruto's name, cuddling a little closer to him. He moved one hand to her temple and combed out her disheveled hair with his fingers, putting it into something more resembling order. "Why, if I may ask, did you seduce the girl like that?" asked Kyuubi. "You don't strike me as the type who's overly concerned about passing on your genes. But neither do you seem like a lecher." "She wanted S," Naruto mentally shrugged. "So I gave it to her. There was no real reason to withhold physical pleasure from her since all it would do is shore up her loyalty even more. Besides, it makes her happy, plus her hormones at this stage in her physical development are probably beginning to become a factor in her decision-making processes. This might calm her down a bit. Or just make her seek satisfaction from you all the more often now that she knows what it feels like. That's a possibility. I suppose it might foster some kind of appetite in her. And you wouldn't complain," Kyuubi said, his odd chuckling resonating in Naruto's mind. "I wouldn't deny her, but at the same time I'm not going to make many, if any, conscious efforts to seduce her like tonight. That's not to say though that I'm not going to refrain from enticing her to try and seduce me. You can't tell me you wouldn't want this as often as you could get it. From what I've observed over hundreds of years, humans are fascinated, perhaps overly so, with fulfilling their sexual desires. Not all humans are run by their libido, Kyuubi. Just some." Naruto grinned condescendingly at that. Indeed, but I was beginning to think your vixen here was never going to be still. To incite a girl to make those kinds of noises you must have. Would you just can it already? Naruto growled. Shut the hell up if you don't have something more productive to talk about then Temper kit. I was giving you a compliment, something I rarely do. Generally speaking, compliments aren't meant to be insulting. Alright, I can see we're getting nowhere with this conversation. We'd get farther if you just told me what you wanted. Right, we'll get to the matter immediately, Kyubi said, a pretentious air about his voice. I think you should resume studying under my guidance. Can we talk about this later? Asked Naruto. I agree that you've got a good idea, but now probably isn't the best time to discuss something that important. You have a lot to learn about survival, Kit, Kyubi growled. There are warriors out there much stronger than you that you're eventually going to have to face, and if you want to stand a chance against any of them, you'd be wise to accept my generous offer. You won't have time to recover from your nightly adventures in the future when there are important decisions to be made. We do need to talk about this. Hammer out what you need to learn and what you're now capable of. Fine, thought Naruto as Sakura stirred. But later, I actually have a lot of questions concerning the ancient village of Maibu and the first Hokage. What about them? Kyubi asked, surprised by the statement. Sakura turned over again and opened her eyes, looking around the room. Naruto, she whispered. Are you awake? I said later, groaned Naruto. Yes, he answered softly. Good morning, beautiful. We will speak of this later, Kit, said the fox before Naruto felt the consciousness recede from his own. Sakura yawned, smiled, and sat up, letting the sheets slide off her shoulders and fall in a heap by the comforter. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.